Hello, hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books. Thank you so much for coming back to listen to more of Sara's War. If you would like to follow Brenda's Books online, I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And today I will be narrating for you Chapter 45 of Sara's War. Here we go. Chapter 45, Never Seen Better. "You don't look like you slept well," says a sassy female voice. I look up to see Molly standing in front of the chair I'm sitting in, which is flat against a wall in the bomb shelter. My elbow settles on an armrest and my head leans in my hand. I blink hard, but it only makes my eyes burn more. "What?" "Oh, no, I didn't," I say, rubbing my forehead. "I thought Nurse Jones was on duty last night," Molly recalls. "She was," I tell her, resting my head in my hand again. But I decided to trade with her. "Well, why don't you get some sleep now?" she suggests. "I can't. There's a lot to do today," I say, sitting up straight. "I'm sure we can handle it," Molly assumes. "Can you trim a cornea?" I ask. "Oh, right," Molly remembers. "The sergeant major needs his eye repaired." "Yes," I say, blinking hard again. "I got a text from the captain saying he'll bring him in this morning." "Are you sure you can do that on no sleep?" "Maybe not," I agree. "Just let me rest for an hour or so. I'm sure I'll be fine." "Why don't you just go back to your tent? I bet you—" "No," I interrupt. Then I flash an apologetic smile. "I hate that thing." "What's wrong with the tent?" Molly asks, confused. I shrug and rub my eyes. I just hate it. "Wait, you look like you've been crying," Molly notes. I wave her comment away and place both my arms on either armrest, lean my head back against the wall, and close my eyes. "Is everything okay?" Molly inquires. She even sounds sincere. Since when did Molly start caring about me? "No, everything is not okay," I tell her with my eyes closed. "Just let me rest now." "Did something go wrong with the patient?" Molly persists. I force my eyelids open to look at her. She holds a worried expression. "Molly," I chide, "just skip it, please." Molly bites her lip and nods. I close my eyes again and hear nothing else. I wake up to the sound of rolling wheels. What is that? I pry open one eye and see Randy rolling a gurney with a very tall man lying on it. Molly follows along beside him. "His eye is going to get infected if we wait any longer," Molly says to him. "I know, but the doctor will take care of it when she wakes up." "I'm telling you she is totally out of sorts," Molly says. "She just needed sleep," Randy counters. "It'll be fine, Moll, promise." A tightening ache in my back and hamstrings sprints down my legs and up my spine. This wooden chair is definitely not made for sleeping. My wrist aches too as I realize I've been sleeping with my head in my hand. I rub my eyes, then twist my wrist in a circular motion to ease the strain. How long did I sleep? I hadn't slept a wink until after I talked to Molly this morning, and that was at about 0700 hours. I glance at my military watch. 1000 hours. Well, I certainly feel better after my 3 hours of sleep. My eyes aren't burning like they were, and my lungs feel like they're actually full of air, rather than that horrible hollow cutting feel. And my mind received some much-needed rest from all those taunting memories. I should be able to function well enough to work for a few hours. Besides, working will help me escape all this excruciating guilt scorching inside my chest. But, unfortunately, I'm positive it will still follow me and haunt me throughout the entire day. Feeling stiff as a board, I force myself to stand and walk toward my nurses. Randy and Molly stop conversing as they see me coming, both of them scrutinizing my disposition. "Dr. Andrews, we didn't expect you to be awake yet," Randy says before I reach them. "It's pretty hard to sleep in that old crooked chair," I say. Molly opens her mouth to say something, then closes it. I glance down at the sergeant major lying on the gurney next to us. Both his eyes are closed, but I know he's not asleep. I can already see the swelling under his eyelid. "Well, let's get going on this guy, shall we?" I say. "Nurse Sanders, grab me my ophthalmoscope, please, and a lid speculum. Nurse Reynolds, will you please get me some anesthetic eye drops and an electromagnet?" Randy and Molly exchange glances, not moving. Doctor?" Randy stammers. We're not familiar with those tools. Where can we find them? Oh, well, they're over there in our makeshift closet, on the middle shelf, I say, pointing behind them. You'll find a large plastic box labeled ophthalmology. Bring it to me and I'll find the tools. Without a word, the two of them quickly leave my side. Sergeant Major, how are you doing? I say a bit loudly. He licks his lips before responding. Do I have to answer that? His voice comes out groggy. I'd rather have a bullet in me, he complains. Don't say that, I chide lightheartedly. Besides, I'll have that metal out of your eye in no time, I promise. Randy returns with my box, and Molly drags a movable cart to the side of the gurney. Ah, good, thank you, I tell them. Randy places the box carefully on top of the cart. I snap open the lid, grateful to know that all the tools inside are sterilized. I slap on my latex gloves and pull out a few needed items. I need you to open your eyes just for a second, Sergeant Major. I know it hurts, but these drops will help. The Sergeant Major opens his eyes briefly, grimacing and wincing, but it's just enough time for me to drip some anesthetic drops in. An elated rush runs through me. I've done this little mini-surgery several times before, but I still can't wait to see the fascination of his eye. Tell me when your eye feels numb, and I'll put the lid speculum on your eyelid. It holds it open for me, I explain. The Sergeant Major nods, and a few minutes later he tells me he's ready. Gently, I attach his eyelid to the lid speculum and snap it in place. I pull out my ophthalmoscope and shine it into his eye. It's easy to see the obtruding metal. I repress a cringe when I see how damaged his cornea is. In fact, it's almost good for nothing now. And unfortunately, it already looks infected. Carefully, I cut a tiny sliver of the cornea to expose the foreign object. Then, with my needle-sized electromagnet, I pull out the shard of metal from his eye. There you are, Sergeant Major. It's all done, I announce. That was fast, he says. Behind me, I hear Randy whisper rather loudly to Molly. See? That was brilliant. I told you she would be fine. This makes me smile. Not too bad, right? I say to my patient. You do have an infection already, though. I'm going to give you some antibacterial as well as some antifungal eye drops, I tell him, as I drip the very liquid into his eye. We'll do this a couple times a day until the infection has cleared. The Sergeant Major nods. That's easy. Yes, that part is, but... I hesitate. But what? Well, sir, your cornea is extremely damaged. You need a new one. You mean I need a transplant? He clarifies. I nod as I carefully detach the lid speculum from off his eye. The Sergeant Major sighs. His eyes close and his body stills. I'm going to put an eye patch on you, Sergeant Major, I say, as I slip the strap of one over his head. You will need to keep it on for a couple of hours at least, but this way you'll be able to open and see through your other eye. Dr. Andrews? Says a deep voice, a few feet away. I glance up and see Jack. May I speak with you? He inquires. Of course, sir. I take a few steps before I reach him. How long will he have to wait for the transplant? He asks softly, without any introduction. I wish I knew, Colonel, but I'll make a call to the eye bank immediately, I assure him. Do you remember that he's my second in command? Yes, I do now, I say. Then I purse my lips, wishing I hadn't given away that I had forgotten something so basic. Will he go blind? Jack questions in a hushed voice. That all depends on how soon we can give him a new cornea, I explain. The sooner the better. Jack nods again. I'll do what I can to speed up the process. He walks past me to the Sergeant Major. I slowly turn around and follow him to my patient's side. You don't need to say it, Colonel, the Sergeant Major says. Jack stands next to where the Sergeant Major's feet lay on the gurney, and I stand next to his head on the other side. I have to go to the North End today, Jack says to him. How are you going to be in charge if you can't see? The Sergeant Major squirms. I had my ballistic safety glasses with me. I don't know how I forgot to put them on, he says, sounding baffled. I don't know either, says Jack. The Sergeant Major sighs and rubs his forehead with both hands. The doctor got the metal out. Yes, I know, Jack says, glancing up at me briefly. And our shot was still a success, the Sergeant Major continues. I know that too, says Jack. It was incredible. You were dead on. But you're still fuming mad. Jack stares right at him. That goes without saying, he says calmly. The sergeant major releases a breath. I know it doesn't help, but I really am sorry. I know, says Jack, still staring at him. Hey, why did you want to talk to the doctor alone? She's still beside you, Jack notes. The sergeant major's good eye pops out a little as he turns to face me, seeing me for the first time. I grimace internally as I realize his peripheral vision in his uninjured eye is quite bad also. He turns back to Jack, looking confused. The doctor doesn't talk, Jack explains. I don't talk, sir? I say, confused. Jack glances up at me with a bit of a nervous look. What I mean is, you wouldn't say anything to anyone if you heard something you shouldn't. The sergeant major stares at Jack with a confused but also amused expression. The corner of his mouth twitches, like he's holding back a grin. You're right, I wouldn't do that, I agree. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll let the two of you get back to your conversation. Jack nods and swallows. This time the sergeant major's grin is unmistakably wide. I spin around and walk over to Randy, who is busy getting a patient's blood pressure. He looks up at me as I approach him. I need to go make a phone call to the eye bank. When I'm finished, will you get me up to speed with the patients who came in this morning? I ask him. Sure thing, Randy agrees, as he unstraps the Velcro on the patient's arm. Also, I say, as I grab his elbow and lead him a few steps away. We both stop to look at each other. Yes? Randy prods. I sigh. Do I still look like I've been crying? Randy raises a brow, then glances at Jack, giving me a knowing look. No, he says pleasantly, shaking his head. You don't. What was wrong, though? Please don't ask me, I implore. Randy stares at me for a moment, looking concerned. Then he shrugs. Okay, then. Why don't you go get some sleep after you're done with your phone call? I shake my head. I'm already awake. I might as well keep going. Besides, there is no way I am going back to that awful Hades of a secluded tent if I can help it. I can already feel the devastating grief sinking into my gut. Oh, how am I going to hold myself together? I spin away from Randy, only to plow right into Jack. Excuse me, we both say in unison, and take a step back. I hear Randy laugh, behind me. I glance up at Jack's face, as both of us try not to smile but fail. Is there something you wanted, sir? I ask him. Jack hesitates before he speaks. Yes, no. I just wanted to tell you that I've never seen a bomb shelter in better order before, both with materials and performance. I'm quite taken aback by this. It's a good thing he didn't come in this morning. Wow, Thank you, Colonel. Also, I have a question. He pauses as he searches my face. My heart changes rhythm. How are you holding up? The news I shared with you last night can't be easy to deal with. Oh, I cringe briefly. Did he really have to remind me about that too? I stuff my suddenly shaking hands into my lab coat pockets. I'm not entirely sure, honestly. Jack nods, still scrutinizing my face. He steps closer and lowers his voice. I'm here if you need to talk about it, Sara. Don't let our situation stop you. I gaze into his sincere eyes. If only it were that easy. I swallow hard. Thank you, I whisper. One more thing, says Jack, his tone back to normal. You better practice watching where you're going. He says it like an order, but also with a wink. I crack a smile. I could say the same for you too, sir. Jack raises his eyebrows in mock shock. Then he gives me a small smile and walks away quickly. After I watch him exit out of the hatch, I turn to Randy. Am I blushing? I ask him. Randy looks at me and grins. Definitely. And that concludes Chapter 45. I hope you come back next week for Chapter 46, which is called In the Wrong Mind. I wish you all a very happy week. If you want to find out more about Brenda's books, you can visit brendasbooks.net. Until next time, take care.